This is the Grassroots Education and Entertainment Network, your number one source of information, education, and entertainment. For honest, responsible, and dependable information, we stand supreme. To stay focused, inspired, and relaxed, choose green.
Ekabo, and welcome to the Ifa Orisa Tradition Community Discussion Show. All right, I would like to open the show with an Iba. Ope Nifun Olorun, Iba Olodumare, Oba Ajiki, Mojiloni, Mowogun Meriaye, Iba Ila Orun, Iba Iwo Orun, Iba Ariwa, Iba Gusu, Iba Oba Igbalye, Iba Orun Oke, Iba Baba, Iba Yeye, Iba Atiwo Orun, Ibashe Igungun Kiki Igungun, Ibashe Ori, Ori Ino, Ipori Atiwo Orun, Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. All right, so Ekabo and welcome again to the Ifa Orisa Tradition Community Discussion Program. All right, unfortunately again, your regular host is not on the program this week. So in the future, it seemed like we may have to do some restructuring for several of the streams. All right. Today, with that being said, to proceed into today's show. All right. We have emphasized on most of the streams the importance of the 8 essences of Ifa. And today, I am going to actually read an article from the ICIR that I have posted on several of the platforms concerning the standards, the strict standards that were set or established by the International Council for Ifa Religion, which is one of the bodies that are responsible for the standardization of the practice of the tradition. Even though the organization is referred to as the International Council for Ifa Religion, it is an organization that is part of the drive to establish the tradition and the Isheshe practice worldwide. Okay? As Ifa is for everyone. All right, this particular point of information that I want to share, I'm going to read it directly off of the article that I published in several of the Facebook groups associated to the Ifa Orisa community. All right, I'm going to read the intro, which was actually my own words. And after reading the intro, then I would explain the statement that I gave, and I would give reasoning, the reasoning behind my statement. All right. The article starts with my introductory statement, which states, I think these are some good points to note. However, we live in Trinidad and Tobago, and some of the rules applied in Nigeria will not be practical for us to follow here. All right. Now, the reason I made that comment is because the practice of any tradition from country to country would have differences. Many of the differences would be based on the fact that many of the physical resources that are available to the practitioners of that tradition may not be common in every part of the world. All right, which would mean that people who are practicing that tradition in other parts of the world may have to make adaptations to suit the available resources. That is the first point of why I made that statement. The second point to that statement is that for people who live in the diaspora, what has occurred in many of the countries is that because of assimilation and miscegenation, you would have had many different cultures intermingling with each other, as a result of which many of the practices that we brought from West Africa would have been adjusted and altered. In Trinidad, for example, I like to start at home and then go abroad. In Trinidad, for example, we would have had the indigenous groups of people who were here, all right, including a lot of people who looked just like us, as well as there would have been different groups of people who lived here and who practiced a totally different tradition. But because of our close association with many of these indigenous groups, you would have find there would have been many aspects of their culture that may have been synonymous to aspects of our culture, where we would have joined the practices together. That is one aspect. The other aspect is the fact that many of the Africans who came to Trinidad and Tobago did not only come from one particular West African country. So you would have had people coming from various parts of West Africa who practiced mainly the same tradition. However, the different parts would have had various interpretations and various practices that may have been somewhat different from others, as a result of which all of these practices being assimilated into one practice would have caused what we practice here to be exclusive to Trinidad. All right? With that being said, and with those things being considered, I would now read the guidelines that were set down by the ICIR as a code of ethics for Orisha priests. All right? So I am now going to read the document. The document is a bit long, and I do hope that I would be able to cover all of it in this session. If not, then we would have to do another part later on another show. Okay? The code of these are the strict standards set by the International Council for Ifa Religion, otherwise known as the ICIR. The Code of Ethics specifically for Ifa and Orisha priests, endorsed and approved by the International Council for Ifa Religion. Below are the general rules set by the ICIR, the International Council for Ifa Religion, that governs the practice worldwide. These provide a moral map and ethical framework that can be used to find our way through difficult issues in the practice of Ifa and herbal medicine. All right. Now, that is what's in the document as the introduction. All right. Now, I want to say one thing before I read further. All right. And that is that there are different types of priests in West Africa. Okay. You have people who set bones who are considered to be priests. You have people who practice herbal medicine who are considered to be priests. There are people who divine that are considered to be priests. So there are various types of priests. All right. In the diaspora, generally, when we say priest, we associate this type of person who practice a couple of things. In West Africa, it is a little bit different. All right. So let me continue. The very first characteristic that is promoted is one, honesty. A priest must strive for honesty. Report exactly what Ifa or the Orisha says and will not falsify the message of Ifa or the Erindilogun or misrepresent facts. He or she must not deceive his or her client, colleague, or the public. If an Ifa priest or Olorisha does not know the correct interpretation of an Odu, the ethical thing will be to consult their mentor for guidance or have the client continue with a more adept priest who can help. All right, this here is the very first rule on the issue of honesty. All right, now the issue of the interpretation of SAEFAs has been a very contentious one. So I don't want to harp too much on it, right? But what I will say is, which I've always been saying, and you would hear me say this in many shows, is that in order to interpret SAEFA, one is required to have a very specific form of training. And part of that training is understanding the language, the Yoruba language, as well as aspects of the tradition and many of the traditional myths in order to be able to interpret the symbolisms associated with many idioms used in the language. If one does not have that training, it makes the job of interpreting SAEFAs very difficult. All right. Number two is objectivity. A priest must strive to avoid bias in presenting Ifa and Orisha teachings. Injunctions and other areas of Ifa and Orisha knowledge where objectivity is required. All right? Objectivity would mean being able to view things from a neutral standpoint. It would mean being able to look at all the considerations properly. All right? Let me continue. The third one is integrity. A priest must strive to keep promises and agreements and act with sincerity of purpose and consistency of thoughts as well as actions. Competence. There must be proper training under a competent Babalawo, Ianifa, or Olorisha, or accredited Ifa or Olorisha college institution of training and graduation before practicing Ifa or Orisha work. A priest must maintain and improve his or her own competence and expertise through lifelong education and training. Going through Ifa or Orisha initiation alone does not automatically confer on and initiate the title of Babalawo, Ianifa, Olorisha, and does not permit him or her to practice as a Babalawo, Ianifa, or Olorisha without first going through the training and graduating. Now, I'm finished. That's the end of that code. Now I'm going to give an opinion. My opinion. My humble opinion too. Now, traditionally, if one was to be born in Nigeria, many of the things that I just read would be possible. But for persons who are born in the diaspora, these things have proven to be a very challenging thing. Receiving proper training, receiving proper information, having information properly translated into English, having good instructors who has a good command of the English language. These are various challenges we have in having qualified persons. I've even heard statements being made that there are no Babalawos in Trinidad. While that statement might be correct by Nigerian standards, we have people here who function as priests who have gone through the local Isheshe training and qualifying process. So these people cannot be written off on their ability to divine and do other things. The reason I say this, and again, I'm trying to give logical reasoning, is because for the duration of time that our ancestors has been here and separated from West Africa, we have maintained many practices and methods of divination unbroken for the last 400 and something years. So to say that our ancestors are not qualified to divine, I do not think that is a very fair assessment or an indication that the persons who would pass such a judgment is aware of the practices that actually take place here and the history associated to it. So in all fairness, I just wanted to add that little bit to what I just read. All right, I would now go on to number 5, which is carefulness. A priest must avoid careless or avoidable errors and negligence. He or she must strive to carefully and critically examine his or her Ifa and Orisha work in relation to that of other Ifa and Orisha priests and ethics of Ifa and Orisha practice. A priest can also seek the assistance of other priests in handling certain spiritual issues in order to ensure the spiritual well-being of the client. Now, I think that is very clear and is very reasonable. Because if you are a priest and you do not have expertise, for example, in the field of setting bones or of herbs, you should not. You should consult or send the person to someone who knows and has the suitable experience. All right. Number 6, openness. A priest must strive to share knowledge, ideas, tools, and resources within Ifa and Orisha groups and be open to criticism and new ideas. Number 7, respect for intellectual property. An Ifa or Orisha priest must honor patents, copyrights, and all forms of intellectual property. A priest must not convert another person's work into his or her own work. Due reverence and acknowledgement must be given where necessary. By this we mean, or by this they mean, if you are going to use the work of another person, please give the person credit for their work. I think that is also very fair and reasonable. For people in the diaspora in particular, a lot of the information that is made available to us is through printed material. And if we are to use the material as a source, we must always give credit to the person who is responsible for the production of that material. You know, and we should also encourage people to purchase the material. And we should encourage people also to study. Okay, because I think that was mentioned earlier. Number 8, confidentiality. A priest must strive to protect confidential Ifa and Erendulugun divination readings of his or her client and other confidential communications. Number 9, humility and respect. A priest must strive to be humble at all times as demonstrated by the Holy Prophet Orunmila. A priest must respect his or her colleagues and elders especially, acknowledge their presence and treat them fairly. The council does not condone any form of disrespect to the elders whatsoever. Elders must also be respectful of the youth. Okay, with this, I want to add, again, my humble opinion. Being humble does not mean to be docile. Being humble does not mean make oneself a victim of other people whose intention it is to take advantage of you. Being humble does not mean being a masochist. For those who don't know what the word means, there are people who like other people to take advantage of them. Being humble does not mean you must be that way. All right, now I would continue. Number 10, social responsibility. A priest must strive to promote social good and interpersonal relationships within Ifa and Orisha gatherings, fellowships with a view to engender peace and tranquility. That is very clear. Non-discrimination. A priest must avoid discrimination against colleagues in the practice of Ifa and Orisha on the basis of sex, ethnicity, race, language, dialect, or country or region of origin. Number 10, social responsibility. A priest must strive to promote social good and interpersonal relationship within Ifa and Orisha gatherings fellowship with a view of engendering peace and tranquility. I read that twice. Number 11, non-discrimination. A priest must avoid discrimination against colleagues in the practice of Ifa and Orisha on the basis of sex, ethnicity, race, language, dialect, or country, or region of origin. I'm reading that too a second time. Number 12, vulgarism, profanity. A priest must avoid any form of obscenity, swearing, bad language, or any type of profanity around Ifa and Orisha shrines or temples and other sacred places. Ifa Orisha rites and rituals that are supposed to be secret must be held sacrosanct or sacrosanct, right? And on no account must pictures or videos of these be displayed in social media for public consumption. There are some ritual and rites that are okay for the general public to view or listen to, but please check with your mentor before placing such videos or recordings for the general public to see or hear. The use of vulgar language in general out in public should also be desisted by good Ifa and Orisha priests, as this shall not be tolerated, especially within the Ifa and Orisha gathering ceremonies, festivals, etc., rites, etc., etc. The issue of video recordings is something that constantly comes up on social media. So I hope this rule would clarify some of the questions people may have. Okay, everything is not for social media. All right, in the diaspora, we use social media as a means of education. So sometimes with suitable approvals, we do stream some activities, the ones that we consider to be suitable for the consumption of the public. All right. Number 13, violence and evil. No Ifa or Orisha priest shall engage in violence or any act of terrorism. The council is vehemently opposed to these types of acts, irrespective of the circumstances. A priest in particular must not think or plan evil against a fellow Ifa or Orisha priest, practitioners, and any other person of the public. I would read this again. Violence and evil. No Ifa or Orisha priest shall engage in violence or any act of terrorism. The council is vehemently opposed to those types of acts, irrespective of the circumstances. A priest in particular must not think or plan evil against a fellow Ifa or Orisha priest, practitioners, and any other person of the public. Number 14, patience. A priest must strive to imbibe the virtue of patience and maintain gentle character, Iwa Pele, in all his or her dealings at all time, as well as Iwa Rere, which is good character. Number 15, extortion. A priest must not collect or extort money from the client or any member of the public under false pretense. This is also very clear. Ifa and Orisha initiations. A priest must not single-handedly initiate people into Ifa or Orisha, as the process of Ifa and Orisha initiation is a life-changing one for the person to be initiated. Assistance of other competent Babalawo, Ianifa, or Olorisha must be sought in this regard. To initiate by oneself without the assistance of other adept or competent priests is regarded as unethical. As we develop and grow in character as Ifa and Orisha followers and priests, it is important to know that there is a very strict protocol to training to become a priest. In accordance with the traditional Ifa and Orisha practice, initiation alone does not make one a priest. It is after one has been trained, tested, and has graduated that one can call him or herself a priest. Below is the process that all would be Ifa priests go through before being bestowed the title Babalawo or Ianifa and being allowed to practice on his or her own. The structure to become an Ifa priest is similar, but is geared more towards the rituals and rites related to the Orisha one is initiated into. Now, with that being said, I would say that people in the diaspora, in some cases, are able to meet these conditions, while at the same time, some are not able to meet all of those standards. Below is the general structure of training to become a Babalawo or Ianifa priest, and the source of this article is Awo Falokun Fatumbi. All right, and this is the end of these specs or these ethical codes that were set by the ICIR. All right, and in closing, I am going to read two sayings of the wise. One says, do not wonder how you will do a job, but do it and then wonder how you have it done. or how you have done it. All right. Now, this doesn't mean taking chances with people's life. This is just a general wise saying. All right. And the other one says, serious sickness reminds us about the severity of health. All right. And I would read one more. A woman sees more with one eye than a man does with both. All right. And with that, I would end the lesson for today. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give some general information on classes that are hosted and held each Tuesday. The African Indigenous Tradition Community has classes Tuesday at 5 p.m. Ifa Orisa classes at the Bataria Community Center, which is opposite the recreation grounds on 6th Avenue in Barataria. We also have similar programs to this one. We have one on Sunday, which is the traditional health show. We have on Friday, community discussion show, which is today. And we have on Wednesday, the Ifa Bemero show. We also have classes on astrology at 6:30, virtual classes, by the way, of astrology at 6:30 p.m. on a Wednesday. On a Friday, we have etymology classes at 5 p.m. Now, I'm going to tell you where you could actually view various streams of these programs on Facebook as well as on YouTube. All right. You may view video streams on the Grassroots Education and Entertainment Network, on the Ifa Orisa Community Congress, on the Traditional Herb Health Network International, on the Orisha Baptist Small and Medium Business Alliance, on the Ifa Orisa Institute of Sacred and Divine Sciences, on the Ifa Orisa Tradition Discussion Group, at the African Indigenous Tradition Community, at the Ifa Orisa Tradition Teaching Group, at the Ifa Bemero home of Ifa Orisa Tradition, and at the Orisha Baptist Teaching Moments. If you want to view it on YouTube, you can go to the Ifa Bemero home of Ifa Orisa Tradition, where you can also view these lessons on YouTube. All right, and with that, I would encourage viewers to like, share, and to subscribe on this stream. With that, I would say Odabo and see you next week.